So I was not political at all when I was a kid. Didn't think about it. Didn't really occupy me. Like I had to, like everybody, we had to, have gas masks on us and we're ready. And obviously, I got all the like security briefings for like the intifadas and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really understand what's going on beyond like a childhood kind of perspective of like, oh, there's an alarm, you have to run, or like be careful on the bus. And then when I was, I want to say 14 or 15, a friend of mine's girlfriend was like, well, you should go see what's up. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, we're going to like not go to high school today, and we're just going to skip, and we're going to drive to the West Bank for a demonstration. So I went to a demonstration in Arat. It's a village, and a peace demonstration organized by Peace Now together with um, a couple of Palestinian benefits and anarchists against fences. And so Israeli left and Palestinian left doing it together. And it was my first time really seeing what was going on. And mind you, when you're 15, it's already starting they're starting to prep you for like your future military enlistment in Israel. So like, there's a lot of sort of propaganda going on, and a lot of like the tests you're doing are no longer really just for academia. It's just like they're trying to kind of suss you out to see what kind of soldier you'll be and where you'll fit within the system, which they're not very open about. So it's like kind of like a weird feeling, but like army recruiter would show up and be like, hey, if you guys really want to be in like combat units, you should start getting in shape now. And like they'll send like free fitness instructors and stuff. So like really get the ball going. And I, again, had like no strong opinions on the matter. And I went and I saw, well, what the people in the West Bank are dealing with on a day-to-day basis for the first time. And I remember thinking, well, this is no way to do anything. this is not a way to treat any other human beings, and it's not a way to treat anybody that you're hoping to get any kind of peace with.
Describe what you witnessed.
Well, the first one was pretty intense. We gathered, it was before they built the separation wall or anything, but we all gathered in the city, village square, and there was signs and people talking and like a lot of lectures going on, and I was like, this is nice. And there's a hill overlooking where the demonstration was, and on that hill you started seeing and just more and more IDF border patrol people, and they're just like kind of creating this long line, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And before I knew what was going on, they shot a tear gas grenade into the crowd, and then all hell broke loose, and it was like a whole big thing. And there was a group of people whose jobs are to assimilate into Palestinian terror groups or anything that Israel deems as such, and they speak Arabic and they dress the part and stuff, and they used the demonstration as a way to cause chaos so they can put on ski masks and execute the targets within their cliques. So all of a sudden everything is covered in smoke, and before I know what's going on, like people are getting killed in front of me. And I'm thinking, the collateral damage, like let's pretend that even just the story is correct, like that's what they're doing, and they're getting rid of whatever high-end people within terrorist organizations, which I'm like, okay, cool, that's what a military does. The amount of collateral damage involved was unbelievable. Like the amount of, I saw a soldier blowing up an ambulance with a tear gas grenade. The whole thing caught fire, and there's people inside the ambulance, and like we tried to get the people out of the ambulance, and then people started throwing up, and like it was a whole mess. It was a complete mess. And I remember coming back and thinking like, okay, it's not black and white. It's not Israel is the good guys and Palestinians the bad guys. We are complicit in sort of like stoking the flames of Palestinian violent resistance. So hard, like the truth is such a slippery surface when it comes to anything that has a lot of like strong opinions on and a lot of different interests in different groups. But to me, it seemed the truth was that Israel was also making sure that there's no loud, non-violent Palestinian resistance going on, like no Gandhian stuff, because it blurs the line of Israel, good democracy, Palestine, evil barbarians. And that also, made me disillusioned with Israel's intentions in the matter, because it's always, within Israel, it's always the same narrative. It's we are offering them a hand for peace. Well, they used to say you offer them a finger and they demand the whole hand. That's like the Israeli saying. But it's always the same. Like, we offer anything and they slap it out, or there's no partner for peace because they're so disorganized that you can sign a peace agreement with one faction and the other factions will just disregard it. Which is, it's true, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So like, Israel spent a lot of time making sure that they are not united, that there is no consistent, like, one big government, one big group that is trying to do anything. And that was a while ago. That was a while ago, and I think that damage is unfixable. The other weird thing, or weird for me, was the amount of effort that is spent on keeping the Israelis and the Palestinians separated from each other. So like, when they built the separation wall, it was not just, at the time I thought, like, this is important because it's cutting off Palestinians from their land. At the time I didn't think this is important because it shuts them up. It makes it so that you can't communicate between the sides, and I think without communications, everybody dehumanizes the monsters behind the wall. So it's true for both Israelis and Palestinians. So everybody thinks on the other side they are monsters, and this wall is here because there's monsters on the other side. And that, I think, was a very powerful tool for extreme politicians on both sides to kind of be like, well, you guys are human, our constituents, you're humans, but everybody on the other side, they're not humans. They just want to murder and kill everybody here always. And that slowly became reality.
How did you tell your family, I don't want to be a part of this military?
I told them for a while in a very teenagey way. So just like, they're all murderous monsters and I will not be a part of it. And then when I got a tiny bit older, still under 18, I kind of changed my tune to, look, if everybody's goal is to live in peace with each other, I think adding more guns to this fire is maybe not the way to do it. Like, I think bolstering, like, nonviolent anything is usually better for peace than more and more war. And then I think they didn't care about that sentiment at all, but I was so bad with authority that they just kind of thought that if I go to the military, I'll spend the whole time in prison anyway. So they calmed down.
So how do you get out of being in the military? If it's
There's two ways.
Okay.
There's two ways to get out of the military. There is There's two ways to get out of the military. One is to conscientiously object. Yes, conscientiously object, which at the time a lot of leftists were doing. The problem was they made an example of my generation, and it was 1.5 years in prison, like, guaranteed. So a bunch of my friends did it, and I kept thinking, 1.5 years in prison doesn't help anything, doesn't help anyone. It's just so that in 1.5 years I can be like, I did this, and like, look how awesome I am. And option two was to claim to be mentally unfit. So there was an organization that will remain nameless that helped kids like me say the right things to get out.
To get out.
And I did literally everything they said. I think maybe too many things I did, but it worked out at the end. And yeah, and that's how I got out. I think if we look at everything from a global perspective or a long perspective or a big historical perspective, we lose sight of the basic morality of day-to-day interactions. I see a lot of people using a lot of history as excuses for both sides. Like, oh, before 48, it was Palestine, and then the settlers showed up and destroyed this utopian thing. And like, you can keep going backwards and see each side is right to a different, like, a different moment in history. So like, I think fighting over who started this, who is right about this, who is just, who has a justification for their action, all of that stuff is just ways to excuse immoral behavior for both sides. And I think for a way forward, or just even on the day-to-day human-to-human interactions, killing people is wrong. Putting people in cages is wrong. Putting people in, having people born in what is essentially a jail or without freedom of mobility and freedom of employment and freedom of a lot of stuff is wrong. Now, what causes it is a whole different story, but the base, I think we always need to operate from the idea that this is a wrong situation that should not persist. And I think what happened in October 7th was not only it was also like a response to, years of oppression and all that kind of stuff, but it was also like what Hamas tried to achieve with this is essentially a strong, terrifying response from Israel. And Israel, just because it's so immature and so hot-headed, just gave them exactly what they wanted. And the only people who are really sacrificed in this equation is innocent Palestinians. And people are like, yeah, it's Hamas using them as human shields. I'm like, yeah, totally, but Israel could also not have bombed it. Like, we could have immediately gone, hey, let's talk this out, let's figure this out, which would have completely foiled their plans of making, Israel the big bad and Palestine the sad victim. So I think even politically speaking, it's just would have been substantially better to not bomb a whole city and kill so many civilians and cause so much damage to not only Israel and Palestine, but to the global Jewish community and to the global Muslim community. If your response is to choose a team and to be, very adamant about your team and fight against this other team, you're helping the bad people in this equation from all sides. It's about unity between human beings and not about solidarity with Palestine or Israel. It's like we need to find a way to jump over nationalism to create this thing where we're like, we as people don't want to, continue this cycle of eternal violence and don't want to continue this oppressor-oppressed thing, and we don't want to continue giving governments and any authorities really, or anybody with the money and the interest to kind of use all of us on the ground to get their agendas across and to make themselves and their rule legitimate. And that's very true for Netanyahu, and it's very true for Hamas. The Israeli government is, at the moment, the worst it's ever been, and Hamas is definitely not great. Pro-Palestinian protests are important. I think giving people voices is important. I think there is a problem with the way the protests are going in regards to essentially the football team-ness of it all, of the Israeli pro-Israelis or the pro-Zionist and the pro-Palestinians, and then it does turn into almost like a Hamas IDF like proxy war, but and that doesn't make sense, and I don't think it helps anybody. So no, I don't think being pro-Palestine means you're anti-Israel or pro-Hamas. I don't think so. I think radical forgiveness is important for both sides to move forward. And I think it's important also for all the activists around the world who are dealing with this stuff. Shouting at someone will not make them understand you, but having a real honest conversation with someone will.